poetry, of course, is the basis of spoken word, and the main difference really is that very traditional poetry was written to be published and read, and of course there's a sort of image of that sort of traditional poetry being sort of read out at a poetry reading. Spoken word is poetry that was written to be performed, so it's performance poetry. So in its very essence and core, it was designed to be performed, and some performers don't even write it down. It's all in their head, or they put it on their phone, and I think that's the real key, is that it was all about it being performed, and that's kind of what makes it very exciting.
Talking of performers, you've got, I think I'm right in saying, more than 30 performing at the Roundhouse over the coming next few weeks. Tell us the breadth, the variety, what we have in store.
Yeah, so it's over 30 performances over 3 weeks. It's probably actually closer to about 100 performers, because some of those performances have multiple performers. And there's a real breadth, and I think what's really exciting about the spoken word scene at the moment is that there's artists kind of working across art forms. So we have kind of very traditional sort of performance poetry in the sort of stand-up, sort of 3-minute perform a 3-minute poem style performance poetry, but there's also artists who are kind of working in comedy, with dance, music. There's a real kind of the crossover between music and spoken word is very close. So there's a lot of performances that involve music during the festival. So there's a real breadth of style during the show, as well as pop-up performances, audio installations. So yeah, there's a lot going on.
I think there's a perception that when you talk about spoken word, it's people clicking their fingers in a dark, smoky bar somewhere. How does that reflect the reality, particularly here in the capital of the scene?
Well, I think the sort of heart of performance poetry is still there, and you will find spoken word nights where you have an audience in a bar sort of intently listening to a group of poets who are standing up and sort of reading their poetry. But I think that it's really developing as a scene as well. And I think that, so for example, the festival opens tomorrow with a show called Wrong, and that's a poet who's worked with a group of break dancers. So he's telling a story about fatherhood and being a father, whilst performing with these break dancers to a sort of backdrop of live animation. So I think spoken word is the kind of centre of it, but it's also, as I say, it can be audio, it can be theatre, it's lots of things in between.